Thank you for tuning in to Kind of Fake News.
Where you can't. Yeah, I fucked it up.
Thank you for tuning in to Kind of Fake News.
Where we don't take ourselves too seriously.
And you can't fact check half of this.
That's right. Thank you for tuning in with us monthly. We do a different show every month. You can always look us up at www.turnitupproductions.com. That's with 1P. We want to do a special shout out to Turn It Up Live and making
Shout
this all
out.
possible. Shout out. And, you come and join us. You smile, learn, wander, wonder. And you can find us under Kind of Fake News, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have the presence out there. So look us up, subscribe, follow. Just introducing everybody. We have your astrology savant, Sarah Sanchez. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. We also have our conspiracy head, Jared Cicero.
What up?
And then me, Selena Bryan. I'm your holistic guru. So we got a new episode for you here, and we're going to start off with Sarah's astrology.
Astrology for March. I almost literally spaced on the month. I almost didn't know what to say. All right, we'll start off with the beginning of March. So first real major transit is March 4th. Mars enters Gemini. So at the beginning of the month, you'll notice that because Mars is like action, right? Mars rules action, boldness, things like that. And Gemini is like the social butterfly. Me and you know, we're Geminis. So it's kind of like that ties together in like your interests becoming more diversified. We're really adaptive to change. And there's this one quote that I don't know who it's from, but it says, it's not the strongest and most intelligent that survive. It's those who can best manage change. Right. So it's kind of an energy like that, where you just, it's really supportive of adapting to changes, looking into new things. And then the 13th is the new moon in Pisces. And
actually a full moon tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I seen that. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because like, okay, so new moons are like new beginnings. They represent like new beginnings. And then full moons are more about like releasing, right? So which I'll get more into that when I talk about the full moon. So the new moon is in Pisces, which, you know, with the new moons, new beginnings, setting intentions, the start of things. And Pisces is a very like watery, emotional sort of energy. It's kind of more like the divine, compassion, spirituality. It represents like the subconscious, things like that. So this new moon is kind of a good time to like be alone with your thoughts. It's a good time to tune into your spirituality, meditation, prayer. It's just an energy that's really supportive of that. And then on the 15th, it's Mercury enters Pisces as well. And Mercury is all about like, it's about travel, communication, things like that. So, and with it being in Pisces, it's a good time to like connect with your subconscious mind. And it's kind of like, it's just really tuning in. And it's kind of, it goes along with the new moon in Pisces, right? We got to have the new moon and then Mercury enters Pisces, which just kind of a little bit more on like a deeper level. You're going inward. You're kind of diving into your subconscious, but it's an important time too, to make sure that you don't get too like, don't lose touch with reality, stay grounded, because this is going to be an energy that really sort of, Pisces is really, it's really subconscious, really, you know, it's a spiritual kind of energy. So It's a good time to go within. It's a good time to explore your spirituality. But just remember to stay grounded too, in these energies. Don't get too like lost up in there in your subconscious. And then
in yourself.
I mean, it happens. So
Right. Well, I know Pisces is one of the
yeah, it really, when you get in
of
there,
all the signs.
yeah. So then March 20th, Aries season, the sun enters Aries. So I'm an Aries moon. And so I'm an Aries moon. But so basically, and it's on the first day of spring, right? Which represents like rebirth, new beginnings, right? And Aries is very independent, confident, bold, passionate, ambitious. Like Aries is the risk taker, essentially. So it'll be Aries season. So it'll have those undertones. And then the 21st, this is interesting. I like this one. I feel like it's kind of like an ooh la la kind of vibe because Venus enters Aries. And this is all about, so Aries is personal, really all about a lot about personal freedom too. And Venus being, with love and things like that. This is a time like the energy is really kind of supportive of like flirting and like short-term relationships, like without attachments. So like it's kind of like a fling kind of time. Like it's kind of like that. But it's also like that intensity, right? Of like the love at first sight, right? You might meet someone and it's like pow. Like it's really bold, it's really intense. So it's kind of, it has that fling type feel, but also the potential for like a love at first sight kind of energy.
Maybe it'll happen for people for St. Patty's.
Yeah. So yeah. And then lastly we have the full moon in Libra. So, and like I said before, full moons are a lot about releasing things. Like how people say like, oh, people are nutty on full moons and stuff like that. Well, it's kind of like metaphorically, it's sort of like the moon illuminates things that are in the dark, right? So it kind of shines a light on things that you need to release, And so with the full moon being in Libra is about balance, harmony, justice, right? And on the 28th, on the full moon, the sun in Aries is actually opposite of the full moon in Libra, which has a really opposites attract kind of vibe, because it really is that those are two very opposite things, right? And so it kind of represents like this full moon will be a lot about like, it can shine a light on what do you need to release to have balance with opposing views, with different things, right? It's a time of seeing other people's points of view, right? And just bouncing ideas off of other people. And so it's kind of like, it's a good time to ask yourself, what do I need to release, or what is standing in the way of me seeing someone else's side of something, right? Or having harmony and balance in my life. What is in the way and what can I release in order to attain that?
Is this something you should keep in mind during all full moons, or is this just how like a full moon corresponds with March in particularly?
So it's really, so full moons in general are about like releasing things, right? But then you think about, you look at what sign it's in, and that's going to be sort of the undertone, right? That's going to be emphasized essentially.
It makes more sense because like Libra, for example, is the scales. It's about balancing, a lot of times like playing devil's advocate. And typically a Libra, they're never picking someone's side, but rather they're advocating for both sides of what the positives or the reasoning why.
Yeah.
So that's why Libra is one of the good communicators and really good to have group conversation with, because you're inspiring new creative thought.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so it's kind of like and that's really in astrology, what you do sort of. And it's like, you know, I mean, disclaimer, this is kind of fake news. I'm not a real astrologer. You know what I mean? I'm not a real astrologer.
We're the
I'm
non-experts.
just a fanatic. I'm just a know-it-all and a fanatic, really. So, and we should link to some of my favorite astrologers on YouTube too, where I get a lot of my information and find a lot of really good information, because it can be really confusing with the astrology. But if you really know basically what our full moon's about and what sign it's in and what that sign, you know, represents, and you know, you can tie those things together, and it applies in everyone's life different too, you know. And again, we go back to the birth charts, but that gets really complicated. That's really tough to understand. But like astrology is really in depth to understand how different things affect different things. But I mean, that's the gist of the full moon, what the energies are going to be like of March. That's what I have.
So if you could describe March like in one way, like what would people be looking for?
So to me, like if you just look at it like chronologically, what the planets are doing and what the energies are like, it seems like a lot of March is like adapting to your interests changing or you changing, right? Because in the beginning, our interests are more diversified. We might delve deeper into spirituality or think other things that we weren't into. And then there's this undertone of going inward, transformational energies, spiritual. You just really go deep and you're sort of connecting with yourself. And then towards the end of March, it's sort of this, this Venus and Aries kind of thing of like how that relates to relationships, right? So it's kind of like you change and adapt to change within yourself, and then you kind of witness how you connect with the world with changes that have happened.
How you take your
in a fun way.
Yeah, in a fun way, lighthearted, ooh la la.
Ooh la la, that's where that came from. And then also, as I always tell people, for the birth charts, it's really cool to kind of, if you want to get further into this, astrologycafe.com, you just put in your city of birth, the time you're born, your birthday, and it'll give you your chart of exactly how the stars are aligned the moment you were born.
And and like I always tell people, so your birth chart, and it can tell you different telling points in your life and what the energies will be like, and what lessons you're going to learn. And I always think you can kind of choose how difficult your lessons are going to be by how adaptive and how much you flow. But the really important thing just about knowing about yourself in general is, we all know our sun signs. That's the one everyone, oh, I'm a Gemini or I'm this. But it's really important to know your moon sign and your rising or ascendant sign, right? Because your moon sign is kind of like that's who the soul is behind the identity, right? That, but your deepest core, like behind who you are in the world or what you allow other people to see. It's
so
sort of like
the sun sign's almost like your ego, and then the moon sign is like your like eternal. Like
it's like the soul behind it, right? It's sort of like your moon sign represents your soul, your subconscious, the driving forces behind what you do, right? So for example, like I'm an Aries moon, right? So, and I'm Gemini sun sign. So it's like I'm talkative, I'm social, I'm airy, right? Gemini's an air sign. You're very flowy. You sort of go with the wind, lighthearted, easygoing. But Aries is very, very driven, ambition. It's really about personal freedom. To me, Aries is kind of like big dick energy. That's what I would say. The Aries are very ambitious. They're risk takers. They have very big energy. And when you have, if you're in Aries or you have a lot of Aries in your chart, you have a really big energy, and you have to just be mindful of like, you have to have people that are like, when it comes to a partner or really, really close friends, you have to have people that can handle that sort of really intense, big energy. And I think if anyone looks up their moon sign, it's going to make sense, because then your rising sign or your ascendant is how the world perceives you, right? So it's like your sun sign is sort of just in general who you are, how you move in the world. Your moon sign is who you are at your core, the driving force behind it, the soul, the subconscious. And then your rising or ascendant is how other people see, when through other people's eyes, what you come off as altogether.
Right.
It's like your first impressions to other people.
Well, that's like a good example. So it's a little kind of like parlor trick at like weddings and stuff. I would guess people's sun sign just based off of the short amount of time of interaction I'd have with them. But most of the time, if I was incorrect at guessing it, if someone had the time to look up their chart, it usually ended up being their ascendant sign that I guessed.
Yes. Yeah.
First impression is someone that I don't already know.
Yeah. Because, it's like you can be one way to yourself and you think you get a certain vibe from your own self. And then other people, you might look really different in the eyes of someone else. And
Right.
So that's kind of what it's your impression, the impression you make on other people is that's sort of like the facade, what it looks like on the outside.
Well, it's like a lot of times people before they always tell me like, oh, when I very first met you, they're like, I thought you were mean, because everyone says I have resting bitch face. But anyone who like knows me regularly would never correlate it with that. But someone's like, oh, when I first met you, I thought you were gonna be mean because you have resting bitch face.
Same. That's literally story of my life.
I'm like, I'm the last
Yeah, I
person.
usually have.
I thought you were gonna be a bitch when I met you.
But yeah, thanks for the awesome astrology review.
Yes.
So that's what you guys have coming for March. So we'll get into my holistic piece. So I'll have you guys kind of guess what it is. So it's a food and it smells.
Bad or good?
Bad.
Detail. Okay. Cheese?
Cheese.
Cheese is a random one. I mean, cheese can't smell bad.
Right?
That's a good guess. Good guess.
Well, let me keep going here.
Keep going.
Like in the cartoons, you always see the
smell thing.
cheese. Yeah. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah, there are some cheeses that can get pretty funky.
Yeah. Cheese is, it's pretty gross if you think about it.
Well, it's dairy.
Delicious, but gross. Yeah.
You gotta
Do we get more hints?
Something you eat that's smelly. What'd you say?
Do we get more hints?
That's it. That's all you need.
Garlic.
Do we keep guessing?
Garlic's a good guess. Actually,
Garlic
this thing it has a lot of the same nutritious values and facts as garlic.
Onion?
Yes.
I love onion.
I love
onion
onions
doesn't
too.
smell bad.
Oh my gosh, yes it does. A lot of people. So like one thing when you're just based off of that, if you're chopping up onion and it's making you cry too much, if you put a piece of bread in your mouth, it will soak up the smell before it hits your eyes. So you don't have to worry about crying while you're cutting the onion.
What?
So, little tip there.
I need that because I cut a lot of onion because I love onion. It's disgusting how much I like it.
This is like, I gotta do one on onions.
I even like the smell. Like when I open the fridge, when I freshly cut up, I'll cut up all the onion and you can like smell it when you open the fridge. And I'm like,
yeah,
people are like, you're disgusting.
I was actually going to talk about it further into it, but like onions, after you cut them, you really don't want to store them in the fridge because it'll soak up all the toxins and scents from within the fridge, including like, say you have it in a plastic bag, it will soak up the toxins and stuff from the plastic baggie even. So
really?
A lot of people, like in restaurants, after they use the onions, if they still have pieces left, they'll just throw it in the garbage. They won't save it.
Really?
You could almost use the onion for those purposes, though. Like if you wanted to soak up the nasty
True.
shit in your fridge.
Right. And that leads right into one of the remedies of onions. So a lot of the outside of just the nutritional facts of just eating onions, I'll start with nutritional facts. So it's a very sulfur rich food, which is very similar to like garlic or radishes, which sulfur rich foods is needed to synthesize glutathione, which makes it a master antioxidant. Um, you naturally get this, but since nowadays people eat so many processed foods, you kind of have to supplement it.
Yeah.
So eating more onions will help that, especially if it's like the red onions, the orange onions, the darker colored onions. And it has, I could go on and on with the properties, but it helps with brain function, liver, heart health, uh, prevent against tumors and cancers and things like that.
With blood pressure and stuff.
Blood pressure, blood clots, tons of things. So health wise, it's off the charts for things. And that's why people have been using it for remedies throughout since like the 1500s. Like in medieval times, it started for remedies that still continue today. For example, if you're sick in bed, you can cut an onion in half and put the two halves of the onion in the room, and it's supposed to suck up the toxins from your sickness and it's supposed to make you feel better, but faster.
Really?
So that's a thing. I mean, and my mom used to do it for me when I was little, and this has been
Yeah.
something that they've been doing since medieval times.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So it's supposed to suck
So
toxins
here's
out
my
of there.
question. Here's my question though, because when I cut up an onion, I'll usually cut up like half an onion and then I'll wrap the other half up because I'm not using a whole onion ever, but should I just use the whole onion or throw whatever else is out? Because even if it's cut in half.
Right. Like some people store them, but I don't have the expert amount of time period it can be in the fridge before it's soaked up so much of your fridge. But if you're opening your fridge and smelling the onion already, it's probably soaked up too much already. Just
True.
kind of like how people put was it baking soda in their fridge to make it fresher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
It's the
never
same
thought
thing.
about that. Like the smell, like that's soaking things up.
Right. Just as much as you're smelling it as it's soaking toxins and the idea of this started way back then. Like there's people that used to use it as a symbolism of warding off like evil spirits and its properties for that. And that's why like in all those movies with like voodoo people and stuff, they'll have necklaces of like onions and stuff like that. So it's used throughout different, witchcraft and voodoo and religions and things like that. So it's been said to have properties.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there about people leaving different sort of things like in their room at night while they're sleeping to absorb negative energies and stuff, whether it's different vegetables or like dolls or glasses of water.
It's the glasses of water thing.
Like they would like you put it under your bed. It's supposed to ward off like evil energies and spirits, or they'll put it like level with their head to help them sleep if you're having trouble sleeping and stuff. The water's supposed to absorb the energies, which is weird because like with crystals, you're supposed to wash your crystals in water under moonlight,
I have heard of that.
to like recharge them and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
they say too, like a lot of people put their crystals like on the windowsill during a full moon to recharge them and absorb it.
Yeah, that's right. Recharging. That's the way I read it. But I mean, it kind of all correlates together.
Or you know what else it is moon water too, where you leave water out
Tonight.
during the full moon, and that's the water absorbs the moon, and then they call it moon water, and it has some sort of properties. And I like crystals and stuff, but I use them lightly, you know what I mean? And because it can get anything like that can get pretty complicated if you don't know what each crystal is for. Some crystals cancel other crystals out. If you have the wrong crystal for your ailment, it can cause the opposite effect. It's like its own whole thing. And then there's the kind of basic ones that are just the go-tos that you know about, but it gets complicated.
Right.
Yeah.
With like the water next to the bed, it kind of sounds like how the same thing a dream catcher does.
Right.
those, you know, originally comes from a different culture where it's supposed to catch any of the negative or bad dreams, so you can only have positive dreams, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
All these
I
things
have
that
always
are
felt weird
related.
about water that sits out. Like, I don't want it after it's dusty now.
Right. There's bacteria floating on
I want that dusty water.
it. Get the dusty water away from me. But random fact, the largest onion ever harvested was 18 pounds by a British farmer. So like what, I don't know, what's 18 pounds?
How
Like,
big would that be?
what's 18 pounds?
I don't know.
No,
Like
that'd be
a big
like-
pumpkin is like
Yeah.
what? So
It's like the size of a pumpkin. As an onion. That's a lot of,
bigger. Well, I mean, they're more dense, so
well, if you want to use it all up fast.
I mean, if you think about like a toddler, right? Like a 7-year-old might be like 50 pounds. You know what I mean? So like a toddler probably be 20
Right.
pounds.
So that's a random fact.
Babies
but
are around like 8 pounds or something.
so
when they're
bigger
born.
than a baby.
Yeah.
Cooking for everybody tonight.
Oh yeah. Well, that one, I mean, you better use it up. Yeah, you better use it right up.
You can't put it in the fridge. So like with that one though, I don't know how long the time span is. Like you shouldn't have it in the fridge past like 24 hours or what.
Right. Yeah.
But
it's kind of good to know, because I didn't know that once you sort of break, like it's like breaking that seal. Once you open
Right.
that, it's absorbing stuff.
Exactly, because like you could just hang uncut onions just and it won't do anything. But now I'm gonna start buying like smaller onions. So if I need to use multiple-
that's what I was thinking. So that you only need one at a time, because that's with the tomatoes. Like they're little. I'll use the whole, you know what I mean? The whole thing or half of it at a time, and then it's gone in 2 days. You know.
Right. And then so originally like medieval times, like it was used often with like for currency or barter systems or as like a common gift to give. So onions were in high esteem even back then because they were just common. Like I'll trade you this for this many onions. It was a common thing to be bartering, trading with. And because even at that point, it was, you know, known to be believed to be pseudoscience to suck up disease and toxins. Also, there's a old wise tale of slicing up onions and putting the onions in your socks while you sleep. So this goes back to like Chinese foot reflexology, where different points on your foot, kind of like acupuncture, correlate with different parts of the body. So like the toes, for example, are for like neck and head, and like just below that's for like lungs and so on and so forth. So they believe that if you put these slices on your feet while you sleep, it'll cure whatever that ailment is correlating to the part of the foot that you put it on. So you would just layer the bottom of your foot in your sock with sliced onions and go to sleep and wake up, you're supposed to be healed. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
I heard that
especially if
about
it's
some other
produce
things.
you grew yourself too, you know.
all natural.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they say too that literally if you when you grow produce, if you're in a lot of contact with it, that it's essentially like it has intelligence. It will grow, and things that you need will sort of like be activated and develop more in
If
that
you're
produce.
personally growing it, yeah.
Yep. And they even say produce that you get from the store, just before you use it for a few days, you know, if it's bananas or if it's apples, just go in and touch it. Just hold it, touch it, interact with it, and it literally will adapt to what you need. And there's that belief that like produce has that intelligence. That's something I learned. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of the medical medium.
Yep.
Anthony William. Yeah. So there's so many fascinating things I learned from watching him, but that was one of them too, is that growing your own food, or just handling produce, you know, just touching it, being in contact with it after you buy it, will make a difference. It'll be more catered to your needs.
Right. Well, definitely. And let's see what else. So it's good to fade age spots. So we just do like a Q-tip of onion juice. So it's supposed to help clear out, you know, skin spots and tightening the skin. It's supposed to reduce oily skin. So
Did
you
you
can
say
dilute it.
tighten?
Yeah, so it's very good for hair and skin. It also reduces like oily skin. So if you dilute onion juice with water, and you can use it as like a face wash. It's supposed to make it
I
not as
will
oily
fucking
skin.
rub an onion all over
All
my
over your
face. Bet.
and not just that, but like bruises. So if you rub it on like a bruise, it's supposed to slow like the bruising time or heal the bruising time faster.
Really?
And like even just eating onions help with like blood clotting and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good for anything like that. It's good for your hair, so you can use it in your shampoo to help your hair grow faster.
Really?
So you do is like chop an onion up, throw it in your shampoo, let it sit for like 2 weeks, so it can mix in all of its properties with the shampoo. You'll shampoo your hair with it. It'll still smell horrible, but it's supposed to help the growth rate faster than a lot of the stuff that's out there for hair growth right now.
Really? So I wonder, would you be able to do like a mixture like of water and onion and like kind of how people do like apple cider vinegar and they spritz their hair with it, then they wash that out. Do you know what I mean? But they don't like wash it with it.
I could see that working because there's the other one. So for acne, it would make sense because a lot of stuff like hair, you can do a lot of the same stuff as you can do with skin. So for acne, you would mix with olive oil, half ratio to 1 ratio with the onion juice. So if you mix those two, so it'll sit for 2 weeks, and then you can use it as a mask. So you'll put a face mask on and like let it sit for 15 minutes, like you would do a normal face mask, and just wash it off. And it's supposed to be a holistic acne face mask using onions.
I love that.
Yeah. So like one of the last things I have is another kind of weird remedy you can use onions with is for calluses. So like calluses on your feet. So you would mix like onion juice with vinegar on bread, and you let it sit for 4 hours, and then you would put it on your feet and wrapped it in plastic and sleep overnight. And then when you wake up in the morning, you'll scrub your foot with a pumice stone, and it's supposed to take all the calluses right off.
It's so nasty.
So, baby feet though at the end.
Yeah, I do a pumice stone on my feet every day.
I'll do it
But
mixing the onion.
sometimes you can get those calluses in just like a hard spot between. I've had them before where it's just like it's not like a big gross callus or anything. It's just like if that's like between your toes, like where like I have a little tiny humpback, like I have a little like humpback little pinky toe. You know what I mean? And it
makes me think of that TV show where the people come on with like the crazy foot and they do the surgery on it to cut stuff
I shouldn't
off
have
it
said that about my toe.
Yeah, now everyone knows about your toes.
Yeah, but I mean, I have it's not a gross callus. It's just this slightly hard spot. Do you know what I mean? It's not like this gross like, but it's just like you would get like on your hands, you know, where it's just a little bit hard. Right. You can kind of feel it.
So think of those spots that the pumice stone isn't getting. So do the onion and vinegar on the bread, let it sit for the 4 hours, put it on that specific spot, wrap it in plastic, and I'm sure the plastic helps keep it moist and such. And then next time you try to moist. Next time you rub that spot with a pumice stone, I bet you it'll come off.
Yeah, I love that.
So that is all my onion remedies.
I love that you did onions tonight.
No, because I love onions. A lot of people hate them. I could just eat a raw onion pieces.
On a soul level, I love and respect onions.
On a soul level.
Hell yeah.
From back in medieval times.
Peeling back the layers.
Peeling back the layers, and that's perfect.
Onions have been day one.
Pulling back the layers of the onion, they'll perfectly move us into our conspiracy theories as we peel the onion back. What you got for us today with our conspiracy theory piece, Jarrett?
Well, as far as the conspiracy theories go, it's factual stuff, but it is like pulling back the layers, because I wanted to talk about the Federal Reserve and how that the money system is actually set up, and a lot of people don't know how it works, how the money's printed, where it comes from, and all that stuff. So essentially, the Federal Reserve, right? They print off these mass amounts of money, and there's an interest rate on it, and it's not backed by gold or silver whatsoever, like we would conventionally think, or how it used to be back in the day. And when they print this money, hypothetically, if they printed 1 million, right, it is then borrowed by the United States government, because the Federal Reserve is not a government entity. It's a group of global, like, banking cartels that are linked to, like, the CFR. The Federal Reserve is like a brainchild of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is like the Bilderberg group, like the place where all the presidents go and the elites, and they make all the decisions and all that stuff. So yeah, and they tax 27 to 35% of our income. But anyway, if they had that $1 million, right, and that the United States government takes it, there's an interest rate applied to it. So the debt ends up turning out to be 1.5 million. But when all of those millions of dollars are returned, there's not a $500,000 of interest in actual physical money. So how does that interest get paid? Right? The birth certificates are the American people are used as collateral at the Federal Reserve. That's why we have social security numbers, the birth certificates. And once that debt is called in, the remainder is the collateral of our birth certificates, or anything we use those paper dollars to acquire something with. So your house, your car, your clothes, all of this stuff is immediately owned by the Federal Reserve as soon as they call the debt back in.
And they're not even a government entity, so we're like slaves to this.
No, this is like the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, all of those dudes.
The 1%.
Own this place. And I think it was Winston Churchill or one of the other presidents. I'm not sure which one, but he was the one that, like, wrote the legislation that put the authority of our money in the hands of the Federal Reserve. And on his deathbed, he's got this crazy long quote, pretty much about how it was making a deal with the devil and selling out the American people to the cult and all this type of shit.
And they probably didn't like hearing that out of him.
Yeah, well,
it probably wasn't Churchill, because Churchill was a prime minister, not U.S.
Yeah, so I was definitely
right.
wrong
But one
about
of the
that.
presidents probably during that time.
Yeah, I am a doctor.
Oh, by the way, I always say during my holistic review, I'm not a doctor. Check with your doctor before you start strapping onions to your feet and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
Woodrow Wilson is the one, I believe.
That's why it's
that makes
kind
more
of
sense.
fake news.
Yeah.
Right.
The gist of it.
You can't take us too seriously.
But yeah, if you do diligence and research the Federal Reserve, you'll find all this out to be true. But it's not the facts that they want regular people to know it all. Just like we're required to pay a state and federal income tax, the Federal Reserve doesn't have to do that at all.
Right.
You know, and there's paper where businesses can go through, but it's the same thing as making yourself as a sovereign citizen. And then these things like cash and laws don't apply to you, essentially.
So I've heard something like the fact that we have social security numbers ties us to the crown rather than the U.S. or something like that. Ever heard anything like that?
Well, all of these, like the Freemasons and those that are allegedly in charge, like the American Revolution stemmed off of problems with the banking and all that. And these groups are heavily involved with like the banking in other countries and stuff. So it's like all the same model, just continuously being passed down, you know, in through a different system.
That's wild. So like
But
them
yeah,
not
it does all have English roots.
Right.
Most of our politics do.
so them not being actual government, so they can also have money going to all types of other entities and organizations that aren't U.S. as well. Then, right?
Well, whoever controls the money controls everything.
Right.
And our money is everyone's money. The world's currency, all the different dollars all go to the Federal Reserve. And there's different Federal Reserves all controlled by an overseeing reserve that watches what all the little ones do for all the different nations. But none of these people are directly involved with that government. If anything, they're telling the government what to do. They're controlling the stock market, the amount of dollars that are actually in circulation. This is what inflation is exactly how many dollars are in circulation. The more you have, the less valuable that dollar is. That's why people are inventing things like Bitcoin and all these other alternative coins, because it decentralizes the power that these entities have. Because we're putting our value into a different asset that they have no control over.
I never thought of it like that.
That was the whole point of
I am learning
Bitcoin.
a lot.
So it would be smart if you have the money to put away just 100 here, 100 there into these coins. If you're scared of something like the dollar collapsing, or you're one of those people that want to invest in gold. But even the value of gold is controlled by these people through stock market manipulation and the scarcity and how much they put out into the public.
So coin's a better bet. We're trying to decentralize it.
I mean, who knows? It's whatever people put their value into.
Right.
Like you're saying, people used to barter with onions and other produce and everything, and now we're using money. Now we're using digital coin you can't even touch. But it's a strike against this regime that's always controlled everything. But that's its own conspiracy in itself, where like Bitcoin came from. They don't even know who invented it.
Right.
And it's like a genius map and plan to like create a digital asset like that. Satoshi Nakamoto was this dude's name, or alias on the internet.
Well,
And
yeah, he knew what it was going to do probably, so he made it so they couldn't really track him.
Right. And then who it would piss off. And I mean, we're talking about trillions of dollars worth of wealth and value that these people control. And now someone comes through and invents some other asset that is completely funneling all of that.
So now it's ruining their monopoly.
Right. And potentially endangering their system that they've had in place, which is largely considered modern day slavery, working for $1, or, however you want to put it.
That's wild. And like a lot of people don't know, well, if you're into it, but there's different types of coins. Like there's not just Bitcoin, there's like P chain, and there's like tons of names out there, different coin that you can look into.
Bitcoin, Ethereum, XRP, XLM, it goes Ren, Doge, it goes on and on. Actually, what people are doing now, this is a cool little thing. So people are developing digital assets, right? Like, let's say I made like a picture, like a graphic, but decided you could invest into it. So I turned my graphic, I attached 300 shares to it, and each share costs $500. So now all of a sudden, this thing you can't even touch is worth millions of dollars because you own a piece to it, like artwork, but it's in the digital world. And then you get into the virtual reality thing, in your little virtuality house, you have a stake in this $1 million piece of artwork. And this is only going to continue to be something that grows, because people are getting more into technology. They're doing more with like simulation stuff, having little avatars. You're going to have to purchase t-shirts to wear in your simulated world.
Right. To promote and stuff. And it's going to happen, like I said, even more so since COVID has happened. Everyone's been forced to do a lot more digital. Like think of someone who was really not into the computers and phones and stuff like that. But now for work, they had to get more digitally involved. It's going to start pushing people more towards that world of getting into things like that.
Makes me think of like Roblox for the kids. Roblox that they love. Yeah, I play that now.
What is Roblox?
it's a game. It's like a little virtual reality for kids, and you can join the different games. Like you can join Royal High or the Tower
like
of
a Sims world, but there's different places you can go to play
yeah, like
different games.
yeah, like you have
Right,
your
it's
little
like
avatar.
Minecraft.
You can choose the game you go into. And it's actually pretty fun. Like they have like one of the games is like the Tower of Hell. Which my son calls it the Tower of Heck. It's like a little like obstacle course you go on. I get really upset when I play it, but
Well, it's like my daughter, so she loves Minecraft, and it's just like Sims kind of, and you can create this whole world, except it's funny because the kids nowadays, instead of having more graphics, it's the most basic graphic as we had back for like Nintendo, where everything's blocks.
right.
I
My
think this will come back.
theory is that they start off very simple with the kids, and as they get older,
They'll keep doing the same thing.
it's gonna grow. It's gonna become more detailed, more virtual reality, more realistic.
It's like they're restarting as if we were kids.
There's virtual simulated worlds you can get into now with the little goggles that you wear.
You have the VR.
Yeah, and people sit in their chairs and spend hours in these rooms meeting whoever. I'm sure all sorts of shady shit happens in there and cool stuff. But it's creating a whole different realm that's gonna generate insane amounts of wealth.
One of those, it's called Second Life, and it got really big probably like 8 years ago. And that's one of the ones that have like not a lot of restrictions. You can do anything in it. People get married on it, and for real, married on it, being their alter whoever. And that's one of the ones where you can get so into it and spend all of your actual money putting it into the game, building your stuff, and interact with anybody from all over the world right on it. So
yeah, and in regards to what it is, anything that's worth money, these people want to have leverage and control over to some extent, and whoever control. It's like dudes like George Soros and Rockefeller have been quoted saying, "Whoever owns the finances controls the way and the will of the world."
Right, like we're so busy worried about what government's doing, but a lot of people don't think about like who's controlling that government that we're trying to fight or argue against. Sometimes it's not going to matter what we say because the decisions that they're putting forth are based off of somebody above them.
Right. And currently the Federal Reserve has actually been making it easier on our government to do things like stimulus packages as it would have been compared to like 10 years ago, as far as interest rates and shit. There's no interest rates right now. So you can print as much money as you want, but we're not getting that stimulus anywhere, or the little, in comparison to other countries, as how it's broadcasted in the news and the narrative that's, pushed forward. Despite what has been given, the amount that could be given based on the amount of money that's being printed isn't showing up. So where's all this printed wealth going to?
Well, aren't we already like trillions of dollars in debt?
Yeah.
It's just adding to the pile.
Absolutely. Trillions. So a trillion is 1,000 billion. 1 trillion is 1,000 billion, right? 1 billion is 1,000 million.
Is that a question or a fact?
Yeah.
Well, that's just so you can imagine how large it is. 1 trillion is.
Yeah.
It's like, I borrowed that much, you ain't getting it back.
Right. Where are you getting that?
Yeah, and it's all the wealth that's thus associated to it. And I think the wealth that they say that backs it is whatever they have in Fort Knox, which is easily because that's like our country's like stockhold of famous artwork and jewels and diamonds and whatever. I don't think that has anything to do with the Federal Reserve. And then all of that stuff seems to evaporate and then replaced with this paper fiat money that's not worth anything.
Right. Sounds like a collapse is going to happen.
Yeah, there was a stock market crash today. All the coins are crashing. But
Yeah, and it's gonna just keep being up and down.
Yeah, well, that's a whole system in itself. There's nothing logical about it, and it's a played system. It's been all over the news lately, and they're being exposed as far as how that works. So there's tons of people downloading stock sharing apps on their phone and getting into it and actually making money off of it, but that money's coming from the 1% when you make money off of stocks, essentially. And since people have figured out how to do this, they've been losing tons and tons of money. So they started doing illegal things that went public that essentially have screwed a lot of people like us that were involved with stocks, just so they could save their ass because they're billionaire trillionaires and they got the gun to put to the guy's head to make him stop the system.
Imagine what this world would be like if it wasn't for greed.
Right.
Seriously.
People only took what they needed.
Yeah.
People easily dismiss like the Wall Street news, like on the news, right? But they're easily, you can tell this money is what's controlling everything as a whole. And that news just comes up on the radar real quick, and then it's gone. And people's like, no, there's no conspiracies or insidious agenda.
Right.
Well, they're not going to straight up tell you on the news what the conspiracies are that you should be looking out for. You got to dig for it. You got to find the inconsistencies and say, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Let me look into this a little more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and which anything that comes across the news, you would think it would make people want to do that. And I think that's actually happening less currently these days.
I don't know. I feel like since like the political climate the last even 4 years, more people have been involved in what's going on in the news and politics than ever before. I mean, like 10 years ago, I don't remember any of my friends talking about politics, but everyone talks about it now. Like,
And exactly, and the access to the information used to be like a underground secret avenue that wasn't publicized as much as it is. So now all these new people are getting in the game and putting their stake in the game of providing this information or defining conspiracy
or
or
manipulating.
letting you know information, but it could all just be provocative groups, like the same people that disrupt positive protests and shit. There's definitely people on the internet working to control the navigation of what it is they want you to believe or want you to be investigating.
Yeah.
It's like the difference between flat Earth and 9/11.
Right.
Right. Like, what's the conspiracy? What's truth?
Right.
And that's the tough part, right? It's because it's like, essentially you want to wake up to the fact that there is conspiracies, there is something behind that curtain there, but then there truly is, there's so many like pow in your face, this conspiracy, that conspiracy, this one, how do you know which one is true, right? And then it's almost like some of the conspiracy theories almost in a sense seem like those could be perpetrated by the people who are supposedly covering it up, but I mean, it's like fear propaganda,
Right.
it's that energy of fear that people are in, and you can control people a lot with that as well. So it makes you wonder what's legitimate, what's true, and it's almost like the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Right.
That's how
I feel like a lot of people, anything that's not the norm, that's a conspiracy, they're just like, I'm not gonna worry about that. That's not what I regularly hear. And they just kind of go into this shell. But there's so many things that are like in your face. Like, for example, global warming. Back when Al Gore was shouting about it, everyone's like, he's crazy. That's not what we're used to hearing. Like, he's saying that. I haven't been hearing about that. We don't care about that. It sounds like a crazy conspiracy theory. And then like 8 years later, everyone's like, oh my gosh, now we're worried about the environment.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And then now he doesn't seem so crazy, but it's way after he'd already been laughed off about it.
True.
Yeah, and I mean, global warming too. It could be a conspiracy that it's spoken about in the end times and revelations all across the board for different faiths. And then you're seeing it happen now. Or there's scientists that come forward denouncing climate change and then lose their job for it because they say the planet goes through whatever
Cycles.
kind of cycle it goes through. Not to say that the humans don't throw a variable into that mixes everything up, but
Like we might be contributing to the rate happening faster because of the pollution.
yeah, and people are going to call some a conspiracy just to provide more like factual belief in their standpoint.
Right, to
You know what
naysay.
I mean? Yeah, exactly. Calling something a conspiracy is a way of calling someone a man.
Oh yeah.
Right, it's
Oh,
you're
it's
inciting
a way
doubt.
of discrediting it, and
But
it's
then
like when that label is such a stigma that once you throw it out there.
But then if you take a poll, the majority of the country believe 9/11 was an inside job. They believe JFK was assassinated by our government, like, and plenty of other issues beyond that.
Definitely. Well, there have been some crazy conspiracy theories. I want to thank you, Jared, for peeling back that onion. Gotta say, because it's the onion episode.
Yeah, I
Episode
like
9.
that you guys did that.
But as always, tune in every single month. Go to www.turnupproductions.com. That's with 1P. And you can find our show, and you can find other shows as well from Turn It Up, and browse through there. Find us on all the social media, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Make sure you subscribe.
Subscribe and follow.
Subscribe
comment.
and follow. Kind of fake news. Hashtag the kind of fake news, everything like that. And we always want to thank you for, smile, learn, wonder with us. And, special shout out to Turn Up Live for making this all possible. So
Shout out.
thank you guys for tuning in. Kind of fake news.
Peace.
Peace.